Ghana to host the Skill Lab for Jobs Bootcamp 2024. This transformative initiative equips students with the essential skills and training they need to become highly employable, work remotely, or even create their own jobs. Why your support matters. By sponsoring a student, you are directly empowering them for tomorrow's job opportunities and contributing to reducing graduate unemployment. Your support will provide hands-on training, career guidance, and entrepreneurial skills. Help us combat graduate unemployment. Sponsor a student today.
Hello, Steven. Can you hear me? Gary, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. Stephen, there you guys.
Hey, how are you? How are you? How are you, Gary?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing?
I am good. Good to see you. You're looking good and younger all the time.
Thank you, my friend. I'm in North Carolina at the moment. I just recorded some book talk with the founder of Tom Rue. Do you know Tom Rue?
Yeah, I know Tom Road. Yeah, the former VP
Yeah.
for Entrepreneurial Kaufman, right?
Correct. I'm in his office right now as we speak.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's really cool. Just a sec.
Mm. Stephen.
Yeah, I think he had a
Again.
call here. Yes,
There
but
he is.
what I'll do is that we'll set the conversation rolling. We'll have some few things to do so that we can properly introduce you and then hand over to you. So kindly bear with us as we try and take the formalities out of the way, and then we can get straight into your presentation.
No problem, John. I just want to make sure the screen sharing as of right now has been disabled. And I'm going to need to be able to screen share.
Yeah. So Pop is gonna do that. Let me do that for you right now.
Yes, I see that the multiple presenters can share now. Gary, try and see if you're still able to share because it's been activated.
Yeah, I think it's working now. You can see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing. Just want to make sure that permission's good.
All right. So, Stephen, if you're ready, I think we can set the ball rolling. We already have about 181 participants
I'm just
online.
trying to call the SRC president, so this is cool. One sec. I'm just calling. Okay, John, let's roll. The SRC president is not available right now, so you can skip up his side and we'll just go. All right, so let's welcome everyone.
Okay, all right. So you're all very warmly welcome, panelists as well as our participants who have joined us. This is the first soft skill webinar that will be the beginning of a series of webinars that would help equip our students with very good, practical, and relevant soft skills that will allow them to prepare very well for the world of work. And as you may be aware, it's either you work for an organization or you actually start your own business. But the engagement we'll have in the soft skills webinars will allow you to prepare for both scenarios so that in the case where you may have to start from scratch, you have what it takes in terms of the relevant soft skills that can help you to be able to excel. And if you happen to also get a job, as in apply for a job and get opportunity to work with another organization, the soft skills you're going to learn over these few days or weeks will adequately prepare you to be able to excel in that function as well. You are all again warmly welcome, and this is a very important part of the entire program that we are running to prepare our students for the world of work. So what I will do is, at this juncture, I will officially invite Stephen to give us the welcome address, telling us a bit more about this program and this project and his expectations for us as we embark on this journey together. Stephen, if you can hear me, please take over, and then let's do that introduction.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for making the time to join us. And also, Gary, thank you so much, for honoring this invitation. For me personally, I want to say this is very valuable and priceless, for us. So, students, I want you to understand that this webinar series that we are going to take as part of the whole Skill Up initiative, as you are aware, the purpose of this project is to basically be able to give you the chance and opportunity to learn and upgrade up yourself with all the skill sets that will help you to be able to fit into the place of work, the job market. Either you're going to start a business or you're going to work somewhere, how for you to have that entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial mindset for you to be able to do things. Like we also agree that entrepreneurship is not basically about just people starting businesses, so your careers are all very, very important in a way that you have to learn certain skills that will help you to be able to achieve that. So this webinar and the whole project that we are going to do, that's the reason why Jen has partnered with the Student Representative Council to be able to implement this program for you and create this opportunity for you. So I want to encourage everyone that whatever you're going to learn here, you don't know what it will take you. It can definitely take you very fast. So took everything very seriously. We are very, very lucky to have some of the world-class speakers, that we've assembled that are going to give you this knowledge and information. Don't let this knowledge just lie just here. After you listen, make sure you put it into practice. So I don't want to say much. I wish you all the best, and we're looking forward in making this project a very successful project. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for that introduction and for reiterating the importance of this webinar series. We would also want to encourage our participants to stay very alert, have a pen and paper or your writing pad or your notepad, whatever it is. And as Gary does the presentation, if there are questions and matters that you want further clarity on, there'll be an opportunity for a Q&A. So at that point, we would allow you to come in to also ask those questions and seek for further information as well. So kindly make it a point to be writing. Very, very important. Although this is not a formal classroom, we encourage you to be on the alert and then keep up with the presentation so that at the end of the day, when the doors are open for questions and answers, you may be in a very good position to ask very relevant questions. And I'm sure Gary is more than happy to provide answers and responses to the matters and issues that he would raise. So I would introduce Gary to all of us. I'll read a bit about his profile, and then I will hand over to him so that he can have access to the presentation. And then I think at a point, we'll also activate the participant chat room so that along the line, you may be able to share some thoughts with us. Maybe you're in a place where you're unable to speak or talk, but yet you have questions on your mind. The chat room will be activated so that you will have access to do that. So our colleagues who are working on the administration panel will kindly do that very soon so that you can have that opportunity to be part of this conversation. We have close to about 230 participants already online. We are happy to see your commitment and we urge you to stay through till the end of the presentation. So Gary is an internationally recognized leader in entrepreneurial mindset, education, and professional development. His work essentially focuses on redefining traditional concepts of entrepreneurship, emphasizing the mindset and the behaviors that optimize engagement and unlock the human potential. Gary has been a leading advocate for entrepreneurial mindset education in classrooms, organizations, and communities. His approach aims to bring to life the concepts of entrepreneurship, making it very accessible to people from various backgrounds and various circumstances. Through his research and articles, he has contributed to both academic and practical discussions on the matter of entrepreneurship. He challenges traditional paradigms and promotes a more inclusive and accessible approach to entrepreneurship education as a means of individual and collective empowerment. He's the founder and CEO of the Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative, and he has led development of the Ice House Entrepreneurship Mindset program that has been recognized by the United Nations General Assembly. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to warmly welcome our speaker for today, Gary. Gary, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you, John. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, everyone, for inviting me into your lives, into your mind, into your heart. I'm very excited to share with you today some of what I've learned in my more than 30 years of trying to deconstruct the entrepreneurial mindset. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you a few slides, but I'm going to stop occasionally so that we can, but let me get this straight. Can you all see my slide there, John? Or
yes.
Stephen? Okay.
Yes,
Yes, we can see.
Okay, good. Just want to make sure. So I'm very excited to share some of these ideas with you. And I hope that at the end of this presentation, you will be thinking differently about yourself, about the world around you, about what is possible in your own lives. That's really what entrepreneurial thinking is all about. So, and I'm going to share with you some ideas from my new book, which is not yet published. It'll be out on December 3rd. So you guys are getting really a first look at some of these ideas. And the book is called The Entrepreneurial Mindset Advantage. And it really gets to the hidden logic that unleashes human potential. And my message to you all this afternoon is that learning how to think like an entrepreneur can make a very big difference in your life. That's really the core of my message. And I've spent more than 15 years traveling around the world trying to answer one simple question. How do underdogs win? How do people who have no particular advantage in life, maybe they're not Steve Jobs or Richard Branson or Elon Musk, maybe they're not particularly brilliant or creative, maybe they don't have big ideas, they don't have access to money. How do those people succeed? How do people who have nothing create something? And that's a question that's taken me on a journey around the world. I've interviewed hundreds and hundreds of everyday entrepreneurs, as I just described, and looked at the research and the motivation and the behavioral research to understand why some people think and act this way. And so, as Stephen just said a moment ago, maybe you want to start a business, maybe you want to work in an established organization, maybe you want to work in the government. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that the world has changed in ways that now require all of us to think like entrepreneurs. And the way I like to think about this is maybe you don't want to start a business. Not everybody in this webinar wants to start a business necessarily. But I don't think there is anyone on this webinar right now that doesn't want to discover an opportunity. And that's really how we should be thinking about entrepreneurship. But my point is very simple. Like, here's where we are in the world. And this is taken from a book written by Thomas Friedman called Thank You for Being Late. And he sat down with a man named Astro Teller, who's the head of research at Google X. Very smart guy. And he drew this on a napkin. He drew this curve. And he was explaining that the rate of technological advancement tends to accelerate. It tends to build on itself and snowball. So if you look at, over just the past 200 or 300 years, the technological advancement is just skyrocketed. The problem is that the human ability to adapt is more of a slope. It's more of a gradual uphill climb. And so the problem is that we're at a point in time where the rate of change, of technological advancement, has exceeded our ability to adapt, right? That's where we are. And so the question is, how do we bridge that gap? How do we keep pace? What I'm going to talk about this afternoon is the entrepreneurial mindset, and I'm going to define it. But I'm saying that the entrepreneurial mindset is different than a managerial mindset. And we can talk about what those differences are. But the point that I want to make here is very simple and straightforward. The world is changing in ways that you now need both managerial mindset and an entrepreneurial mindset. You need them both. And my point being that the entrepreneurial mindset is more adaptive to change, where a managerial mindset is more appropriate for stable conditions. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we move on. So really, what is an entrepreneurial mindset? Where does it come from? How can we develop it in ourselves and others? That's the big question I want to get to. And I just realized that I'm showing you guys the wrong slide deck. Okay, here we go. All right, so I already covered this, right? The next point that I want to make with you all, and by the way, I will share this slide deck with the hosts, and I'll share, you guys can have access to these slides when I'm done. But the point here is that we are probably living in the most opportunity-rich time in human history. There has never been a more opportunity-rich time in human history. There is unlimited global demand for people who can think like entrepreneurs. Yet the problem is, to most people, the entrepreneurial mindset is a mystery. It's mysterious, and we don't understand where it comes from and why some people think this way and others don't. I already got into that, so I'm going to skip through this portion of it. And so let's delve into this question. What exactly is an entrepreneurial mindset? Where does it come from? Why do some people think this way and others don't? And so those are the questions I want to answer. And I want to start with two really important ideas. The first is the mindset. Let's explore the mindset as a hidden mechanism in our brain that influences our behavior without our awareness. That's the first idea. The second idea is we need to redefine entrepreneurship in a way that anyone can embrace. Whether you work in a business, you start a business, you work in government, private sector, public sector, nonprofit, doesn't matter. We've got to redefine it. The ways of thinking about entrepreneurship are out of date. And so I'll talk about these two things at the first part of my talk today. So let's get into mindset, right? In my book, in my chapter on the mindset, I have a chapter called The Origins and Evolution of a Managerial Mindset. And I use this parable from a talk by a man named David Foster Wallace, in which he told a story. There's two young fish swimming along, and they encounter an older fish. And as the older fish passes the younger fish, he said, "Good morning, fellas. How's the water?" And the younger fish just keeps swimming along until one of them looks at the other and says, "What in the heck is water?" And I think that's a useful parable to illustrate that the entrepreneurial mindset is actually a very natural thing, and we learn not to be entrepreneurial. But more importantly, the entrepreneurial mindset only seems mysterious to us to the extent that we are steeped in managerial thinking. You don't even know it. What is a managerial mindset? What is an entrepreneurial mindset, right? I'll get into that in a minute. But sometimes the most important, obvious realities are the ones that are the hardest to see. And this is what I meant here. What I hope will even occur in this webinar. I can demonstrate to you that sometimes a subtle shift in your thinking can make a huge impact in your life. And that's why mindset is so important. So we all have a mindset, yet very few of us are aware of it, much less the ways in which it influences our behavior without our awareness. It's kind of like our operating system. It's at work determining our thoughts, feelings, actions, and we're not even aware of it. That should keep you all up at night. Just, honestly, I don't understand why they don't teach this to high school students or freshman seminar just about mindset. Forget about entrepreneurship for a moment. Just talking about mindset, it's baffling to me. So here's how I define mindset. It's a pattern of beliefs, assumptions, and mental models learned by an individual that has worked well enough to be considered valid and therefore assumed to be the correct way to perceive, think, and feel. Now, I think the critical term here is assumed. Let me dig in a bit deeper. Here's how our mindset works. Let's think of an iceberg, right? Above the surface are the visible artifacts and the observable behaviors. That's what you can see and hear and touch and feel, right? Level 2 is where our explicit knowledge resides. That means what we know that we know and what we say that we value. So, we know that 2 + 2 is 4. We say that we value hard work or this or that or the other thing, right? Those are our espoused values. But there's a deeper level 3. And that's where we find our deeply held values and taken for granted assumptions of which we're not likely to be aware. Now, here's the point. What shows up on the surface is not the result of our explicit knowledge, but the result of our level 3 deeply held values and taken for granted assumptions. So another way to think about this is that our mindset is a belief system that is perfectly designed to create the outcomes that it creates. I'm going to say that one more time. Our mindset is a belief system that is perfectly designed to create the outcomes that it creates. I think that if anyone can just wrap their minds around that idea, you're going to be just fine. But the way the mindset works is we're not aware of those level 3 beliefs, right? So we keep, if you're not happy with where you are in your life, instead of blaming others, we should start by looking within and start to contemplate how our deeply held values and taken for granted assumptions might be preventing us or might be interfering with our ability to create the life that we want to create for ourselves. So that's how a mindset works, right? And I think part of this work is to have a discussion and find people you can trust, and so you can have these honest dialogues, because it's easier to see the errors of judgment in others than it is in ourselves, right? We can point out all the flaws in everyone else, but they're harder to see in ourselves. And so I would recommend that you surround yourself with other entrepreneurial minded people who are willing to give you honest feedback. That's a very, very important piece of this puzzle. So there's 2 aspects of the mindset that I want to draw your attention to. The first is that your mindset acts like a regulator that determines the output you get from the engine you have. Our mindset can either hinder or enhance our ability to optimize our inherent capabilities. So you can think of it like this. You have one person over here who has a 400 horsepower engine, but their mindset is such that they only know how to get 100 horsepower of output from that engine. And let's face it, we all know people like that, right? Then you have a person over here with a 200 horsepower engine, but she knows how to get all 200 horsepower out of her engine. She's better off than the guy with the 400 horsepower engine. And that's what I've observed in these everyday entrepreneurs. They're not necessarily the straight A students, but they learned how to optimize their inherent potential. And that's the first aspect of mindset that I want to draw your attention to. The second is that your mindset is likely to hinder your ability to adapt in the face of change, right? And I'll tell you a little bit about how that works now. So let's go back to the iceberg model. On the surface, you see the outcome, the output, right? Well, a mindset is shaped like this. We learn things, and sometimes we learn things in a classroom, or things our parents teach us, or things we read in a book, or going to a lecture, or listening to a webinar, right? We consciously acquire knowledge. So the knowledge comes in at level 2. Once our brains accept that piece of knowledge as the correct way to perceive, think, and feel, our brains automate it. In psychology, it's called automaticity. You see, our brains are always trying to reduce the cognitive load. So once our brains accept, let's say like this, today's your first day on your new job, and you have to drive to your new job, or you have to walk or take the bus or whatever you do. And so you have to pay attention to where you're going. But after a week or two, you don't have to think about it because your brain said, okay, this is the correct way to get to my job. It automates it. And once that happens, it drops from our conscious awareness. It drops below our conscious awareness. It's called automaticity, right? So we learn things, we accept them to be correct, and then we automate them and we lose awareness that they're there. Now, some knowledge is acquired unconsciously and often uncritically, right? We learn things by observing people around us. And we learn a lot of things when we're young and we're not old enough to challenge ideas. So some of the knowledge we've acquired comes in at level 3. But in either case, that's how our mindset gets shaped. I heard one psychologist put it this way. At first, the world shapes our mindset, and then our mindset shapes our world. That's kind of how it works. So what happens is our mindset becomes a fixed way of thinking, right? That creates a very powerful incentive to draw from the past in order to navigate the future. So, from an evolutionary perspective, our mindset is meant to allow us to get better and better and better at what we're doing in stable conditions, right? We become expert. We acquire knowledge that makes us faster, stronger, more adept, more successful. That's how we grow. So from an evolutionary perspective, our mindset is meant to help us. But it can only help us when the future looks like the past, or when it draws from the past in order to navigate the future. The problem is our mindset works against us when the future doesn't look like the past. That's really the problem. So that's just a quick overview of how our mindset works. It's this underlying mechanism. It's a collection of beliefs and values and assumptions that we assume to be the correct way to perceive, think, and feel in our world. And those underlying beliefs and assumptions then direct our behavior. And it works for us when the future looks like the past. But in times of change, our mindset works against us and prevents us from adapting in the face of change. And this is why we need 2 mindsets, right? So now I want to talk a little bit about what is entrepreneurship and maybe how is entrepreneurial mindset different from a managerial mindset. So one thing that's important to understand is that, the way we think about entrepreneurs is skewed by what we see in social media, right? We hear the word entrepreneur and it conjures an image of these famous billionaire entrepreneurs that we all see about, we read about in social media. But the reality is these venture-backed, high-growth entrepreneurs that have big ideas, they represent such a tiny, tiny fraction of the whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so this image of the entrepreneur as this, unique individual that somehow creates these amazing businesses is flawed. That way of looking at it is flawed. So here's a little fun fact for you. I found this research from a guy named Amir Bideh, who was at Harvard, when he looked at the origins and evolutions of large established companies. And he was looking at companies like Microsoft, Hewlett Packard, big established companies. And here's what he found. These large established companies have what he called humble, improvised origins. And the people who start them, they don't have any big ideas. There's no breakthrough technology. They're doing something that's already being done. They might do it in a slightly different way, but they're not inventing anything new. And I don't mean to discourage anyone from being inventive. I want to make the point that this gets a lot of people in trouble. They think, oh, in order to be an entrepreneur, I got to come up with something that's never been done before. You look at the vast majority of entrepreneurs, they're doing something that's already being done. They're not spending much time writing business plans. And I wrote about this in my new book. Business planning is not helpful for the typical entrepreneur in the beginning. It might become relevant much later, but it's not the place to start. What Bideh also found is that a typical entrepreneur isn't doing market research. And there are also good reasons for that, because in many ways, the research is only drawing from the past. And what these entrepreneurs are doing is they're using their imaginations to draw into the future. They don't have a lot of money. And now, look, it's $10,000 is a lot of money to you and me, but these are companies like Hewlett Packard and Microsoft and Walmart. These are big companies. The point is, they don't have access to large amount of money. That's the point. And most astonishingly, they don't have much experience in their chosen field. And Bideh found that 40% of founders of these large established companies, 40% had no experience whatsoever in their chosen field. So the question becomes, how do you explain that? No money, no big idea, no experience, no planning and research. How do you create something from that? This is the mystery. This is the great mystery that I have decoded in my new book. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this happens in the next part of this talk. And so I'm going to use this concept called transformation theory, which was developed by a man named Dr. George Land. And you know what? Before I even go into this, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and just ask if there are any questions, any comments. I see one thing in the chat just from, okay, that's from you. I'm just going to pause. Do you all have any questions? I'm delighted that we have, nearly 300 students in this webinar. Any ideas you want me to double click on or talk about more, or should we just keep going?
All right, so the floor is open at this juncture. If any one of you has a question, you raise your hand and then we'll give you the opportunity to do so. But remember that please keep it very brief and straight to the point. We're all enjoying our lecture so much. So let's try and keep it straight to the point. All right, so Masood, I see your hand up. Can you go first? Masood, can you hear me? Yes. Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, that was
Okay, then let's take Joshua. Joshua, if you are ready, go ahead, Joshua.
Or you can also just type in the chat your question if that's easier.
Yes, Gary, I will advise we go that route so that at least you can keep going so that, yes, we can read the questions at a particular time. Once we get about 3, 4, 5.
Okay, then I will continue to share my slides.
Thank you.
Okay. John, can you see my slide?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is a concept called transformation theory. It was developed by a man named Dr. George Land to explain the nature of change within any living system. And I find it quite useful to help us understand the role of entrepreneurship in our society, but also to understand the distinction between entrepreneurial and managerial attitudes, behaviors, and skills. So here's how it works. What Land is saying, there are 3 phases of change in any system. There's a discovery phase, there's a growth phase, and there's an obsolescence phase. In some cases, the obsolescence phase becomes a reinvention phase and a new growth, a new S-curve begins. But that's what it looks like. These orange dots represent moments in time when the rules for survival change. So what Land is saying is that each of these 3 phases requires separate rules for survival. And the key to survival is to understand which phase you are in so that you know which rules to apply. To do otherwise is what is a textbook example of what it means to be maladaptive. Now, that's really an important piece of this. So the breakpoints represent the moment in time when the rules for survival change. But here's the thing. Though we don't get orange dots in real life. We don't have somebody saying, hey, there's an orange dot in your email. They're much more subtle. And so that's part of what the entrepreneurial mindset is about, is recognizing that the mindset that once enabled us to succeed is now no longer appropriate. So what Land is saying is in the discovery phase, which is characterized by exploration. The discovery phase is where an organism is searching for a connection with its environment, right? So what does that look like for us humans? How do we connect with our environment? We connect with our environment by making ourselves useful to other humans. That's a very simple explanation, right? Now, most of us do that in school where somebody else tells us how to be useful, right? But nevertheless, so for most of us, discovery happens within a formal learning environment where someone else is telling us what to learn and do in order to be successful. And the first dot, the first break point, is when we graduate from university. And we now go out into the world, as Land said, the organism stops searching and it starts to replicate the connection that it found, right? So you get your degree, you get your diploma, you go out into the world and you get better and better and better at doing that thing, whatever that thing is. And that allows you to advance in your career, that allows you to climb the organizational ladder and grow. Fair enough. The point is that at some point, you are going to reach a second break point. And that break point occurs when the growth starts to slow. And at that point, we're either going to fade into obsolescence and become irrelevant, or we're going to reinvent ourselves. And this is where we get stuck. This is where our mindset hinders us. So one of the points that George Land made is this: nothing fails like success. The mindset that once enabled you to become successful in column 2, in the growth phase, it was absolutely essential. The underlying attitudes and assumptions that were essential for your success will now prevent you from adapting in the face of change. The Germans have a word for this called the Einstellung effect. It basically means the attitude effect, right? And this is why inexperienced entrepreneurs succeed, because they're not yet steeped in a way of thinking that prevents them from adapting in the face of change. So the big question is this: how do you as students, as young people ready to go out into the world, how do you learn how to make yourselves useful to other humans without a professional teacher telling you what to do and how to do it and when to do it? How do you learn how to make yourself useful to other humans without the benefit of a predictable path, with a predetermined set of steps and a predictable outcome? That is the question for the 21st century. As Alvin Toffler said, the illiterate of the 21st century are not going to be people that can't read and write. It'll be people that can't learn, unlearn, and relearn on their own. And I was with Stephen in San Juan in Puerto Rico a few weeks ago at a global entrepreneurship conference. And I was saying that the big shifts that are happening in the world now are a shift away from other direction towards self-direction. If you can't learn, unlearn, and relearn on your own, you are going to become increasingly vulnerable as the world continues to change. So that's really the big question here. How do we do that? So let's look at what that discovery looks like through an entrepreneurial lens. Okay. Now, this is the best way I've found to help understand entrepreneurial behavior. If you understand what's happening, it's an individual or small group of individuals searching for a way to make themselves useful to other humans, right? Now, and they're doing this search without a professional teacher telling them exactly what to do, without a predictable path. How do you make yourself useful? Well, first, we must consider the context within which this discovery is happening. And one of these contextual factors is the extraordinarily high degree of ambiguity, right? There is no clear answer. There is no expert to tell you whether you're right or wrong. There's no book in a library that tells you, yes, you have the right answer. You've got to figure everything out for yourself. And that ambiguity bothers us, right? We're growth-oriented, opportunity-seeking organisms, but we're also stability-seeking, uncertainty-avoiding organisms. So the ambiguity makes us nervous. The second contextual factor to consider is the very low degree of resources, the lack of available resources. And there's a third, and that's the self-directed nature of the pursuit. Okay? Now, here's what I'm trying to say to you. This high degree of ambiguity, the scarcity of resources, and the self-directed nature of the pursuit are absolutely essential for you to develop entrepreneurial attitudes and skills. If you take away any of those three factors, we're going to discourage the development of entrepreneurial attitudes and skills. So that's really, really important, right? High degree of ambiguity, resource constraint, self-directed. How do you get across that chasm? How do you find a connection? For the entrepreneurial-minded person, the connection is found not when we graduate with a certificate. The connection is found when we have evidence of usefulness. What is evidence of usefulness? Evidence of usefulness is when somebody agrees to pay us for something. The money represents evidence that what you're offering is useful to them. So my point here is simply this. Entrepreneurship isn't about gambling. It's not about taking big risks. It's not about being a fortune teller. It's about being a detective or a scientist, experimenting, trying lots of little things to see what works. So how do you survive in this highly ambiguous, self-directed, resource-constrained pursuit? Well, you need problem-finding skills. And the most important of those is empathy. The big shift here is really, really profound, yet it's really simple. You're going to get what you want by helping other people get what they want. So we miss opportunities because we're focused inward on trying to get our own needs met. And that blinds us to the opportunities that exist in our everyday lives. Opportunities are everywhere. It's not that they're hard to find, it's that they're easy to overlook if you're only focused on your own needs. So let me just leave it there for now. Then you need problem-solving skills, creativity and innovation, critical thinking. You need to learn how to experiment and try things, collaborate, network, communicate, be resourceful. And then you need to learn how to direct yourself and regulate yourself. You need to develop an internal locus of control. It's up to me to figure out, to solve these problems. The ability to tolerate that ambiguity, to become a self-directed lifelong learner, to become self-aware, to think about our own thinking, as we showed earlier in the iceberg model, to think about the deeply held beliefs and assumptions that might be holding us back. And we have to develop resilience. And that resilience comes from optimism. It's the story we tell ourselves. Is it a negative story or is it a positive story? Okay, so I'll leave it there. But all this is to say, I've redefined entrepreneurship in a simple way. It is simply the self-directed pursuit of opportunities to create value for others. And by creating value for others, we can empower ourselves. That is a definition of entrepreneurship that anyone can embrace. Whether you work in government, in a regular job, or start your own business, or both, or any combination of that. You know, one of the, I tell sometimes young people when I give these lectures, here's how you can start being entrepreneurial tomorrow morning. Show up 15 minutes early and stay 15 minutes late, and do that consistently, and watch how quickly opportunities find you. So the basic idea of an entrepreneurial mindset is that it's my responsibility to figure out how to make myself useful to others. And the more useful I make myself, the better off I'm going to be. It's a really simple idea that can make an enormous difference in our lives. So here's another way to think about it, right? We all come into this world with interests and abilities that are uniquely ours. And when we pursue our interests and develop our abilities in ways that create value for others, in that intersection, we become optimally engaged. We become excited about learning. We become excited about work. We're no longer saying, oh, thank God it's Friday. We're saying, thank God it's Monday, right? We become engaged in our work. And to the observer, they can't tell whether we're working or playing because we're doing both at the same time. So I'm going to pause there and see what questions you all might have, and see if we can see what questions you might have.
All right. So a few questions came in. I'll read it for your attention, and if you have some response, we'll be happy to hear that from you. So I think earlier on in the presentation, a question came from Enoch. Yes, he says, thanks for the opportunity. So can I say mindset and instinct are related? That's a question from Enoch. Can I say mindset and instinct are related? And then there's another one from Joel. Joel wants you to throw more light on the ad hoc market research. He wants you to throw more light on the ad hoc market research. So these are the two questions that have come in so far.
Okay, let me start with that, John. Thank you. So the first question, was it instinct?
Yes, instinct and then mindset. Is there a relationship?
There might be a relationship. I've not thought about that, but they're two different things. Instinct is, you know what? You were born afraid of heights. When you're newborn, like newborn children are afraid of heights. They're, you know, most of us are afraid of snakes. That's built into us. That's instinct. Mindset is unconscious learning. So it's a different thing. It's a really good question, but it's a different thing. Now, John, can you please repeat that second question for me?
Yes, the second question, or the person wanted you to throw more light on the ad hoc market research. Probably you may have mentioned it in the course of your conversation. Yes, please.
God, that's also a really good question. Thank you for that question. So let me put it to you this way. I'll use a story from my own life. When I was young, I had failed in my first business and I was starting over in my 20s. I had no money. I had no education. I was in debt. And I had an idea that people in a rich neighborhood where I'm not from might pay me $100. This is in the 1980s when 100 US dollars was about 300 US dollars today. So I had a theory, an assumption, a hypothesis, whatever you want to call it, that people in a rich neighborhood, and again, I didn't grow up in a rich neighborhood, so I'm outside my comfort zone. Now, let's say that's your idea. How are you going to do market research for that? Are you going to go knocking on doors? Is there any data on Google about what percentage of people in what neighborhoods are going to pay and how much they'll pay? The data don't exist. So you have to create the data. Now, there's another important nuance here, John. I could, I suppose, have gone door to door asking their opinion if they will pay me. But this is also of limited value because remember the mindset, what people say they will pay for, level 2, and what they will actually pay for may be 2 different things. So a survey is, there might be some value in a survey, but it's not, okay? So what I did was I borrowed a ladder from a friend of mine because I didn't have the money to buy a ladder, John. But I borrowed the ladder and I went to the neighborhood knocking on doors. And day number 1, I found 1 customer and I did a really good job. And she told a friend, and the next day I had another one to do. And I looked up, 10 years later, I was doing $5 million in revenue.
Amazing.
But
Wow.
the point that the question really gets at, John, which is such a good question, is the difference between entrepreneurial and managerial thinking. A manager will tell you, yes, go do the research. The entrepreneurial mindset will say, let's try. And what can we learn? Now, let me go a little further with this. This is a really good question and a good opportunity. First of all, I don't come from a wealthy family, so I'm uncomfortable in this situation, number 1. Number 2, I'm afraid of heights. I don't like being up on a ladder, 25, what is that, 7, 8 meters up in the air with a bucket hanging off of a ladder. I don't like that. And I only probably cleaned 5 or 6 gutters before people started, people saw that I was reliable. If they said, please come tomorrow at 8 a.m., I would be at their door at 10 minutes before 8. So I'm demonstrating not with my words, but with my behavior, right? That I'm reliable. And when I was done, I would make sure all the debris that came from the gutters was nicely packed up in the trash bags and the customer was satisfied. And people started to ask me, can you fix this? Can you fix that? Can you? And I started to notice that people in expensive neighborhoods, when they went to sell their house, the government made them upgrade code violations. And so I was solving a different problem for the homeowner. And then real estate agents started to come to me because the house couldn't transfer without all these violations being resolved. So the broader point is your idea doesn't really matter in the beginning. You have to get into the arena. You have to just take the stupidest idea, whatever. It's got to solve a problem, go out in the world and start interacting with people and trying to understand their problems and demonstrate that you can solve problems that you're eager to solve, and opportunities will quickly find you. So it's a really good question. I hope I answered it thoroughly. John, thank you for that.
Yes, amazing perspective. Thank you so much for throwing more light on that. Thank you. So these are the questions for now. I think we can proceed here.
Okay, I see there's 12 questions in the Q&A. Are you looking at all those, or you want to wait till?
Yes, we sort of don't want to throw you off your presentation. So once you are done with the substantive
Okay,
matters,
gotcha,
then we can
gotcha.
open the floor. Yes, please.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I only have a few things left, and we'll get back to the Q&A because that's where the most fun happens. You guys are probably getting sick of hearing me anyways. So, all right, let's move on. So now what I want to do briefly is I want to show you these 8 core concepts that I've learned by observing hundreds of everyday entrepreneurs, okay? So this is a little bit more practical than theoretical. Number 1 is they're choosing their future, right? And if you talk to any entrepreneur, they will tell you they have a vision. They have a compelling goal, something they're trying to get to. And when I started to look at the research, I realized they're not only using their memory, but they're using their imagination. So if all of you, there's almost 300 of you on this webinar, if you don't hear me say anything else, what I would encourage each of you to do when you go home tonight is find a few minutes of quiet and start to write with a pencil and paper, a pen and paper, the future you want to create for yourself. If you could see no limits, use your imagination. That's the most powerful thing you can do. That's how you tap into your problem-solving abilities. So they all have a compelling goal. Now, the question becomes, why don't you have a compelling goal? That's a mindset question. What are the underlying beliefs, level 3, that are causing you not to have a goal or a compelling, right? Okay, now why isn't this thing working? Okay, the second thing I observed in entrepreneurs is they see problems as opportunities. Right? They go looking for problems to solve. And we talked about that earlier. It's the problem finding phase. They try lots of little things. They don't write business plans and do all kinds of research. They're micro experimenting. They're trying lots of little things on a very small scale to see what works. In biology, we learn that the way an organism orients itself in unfamiliar terrain is to try lots of little things, right? It doesn't make big, bold bets. The idea of the entrepreneur as the risk taker is mostly a myth. And what we also see in entrepreneurs, they may not be great students in school, but they're always learning, constantly learning. They may not be learning in a classroom, but they're watching videos. They're reading on their phone. They're listening to audiobooks. They're watching YouTube videos, whatever they're doing. So the engine, the engine of the entrepreneur is look for problems to solve, try lots of things, and always be learning. That's the engine. Be resourceful, right? The entrepreneurs you don't need money to start a business. You got $5, that's enough. You don't need money. In fact, money gets in the way. People think they need a lot of money to start a business. You need a screwdriver and a pair of pliers, you can start a business. You know, I'll tell you a quick story. I was in Johannesburg about a year ago. We trained about 250 teachers in Johannesburg. And all the teachers were talking about how high youth unemployment is in South Africa. And then every night I would get to interview South African entrepreneurs. And the entrepreneurs were all saying, there's so much opportunity here. And the teachers are all saying, oh, there's no jobs, there's no jobs, there's no jobs. They both live in the same city, in the same world. You just have a different perspective. Be reliable. That's what I see in the entrepreneurs. You can do something simple like cleaning gutters. And if you are reliable, you don't have excuses, and you show up early and you stay late and you do a little bit more than you promised, you can build a fantastic business out of the simplest little idea. Another thing I observe from these entrepreneurs is they surround themselves with other entrepreneurs. Now, that's really important. Most of us surround ourselves with people that think and act like we do, and that keeps us in the same orbit we're in. But if you deliberately place yourselves among other people who are looking for answers and striving and growing and trying things, that's going to have a very positive impact on you. And the last thing I'll say about that is what I've observed in these entrepreneurs is they don't give up. And so many of them have told me what it all came down to in the end is a refusal to quit. And this comes from this persistence or resilience comes from our internal dialogue. What is the story we tell ourselves? Is it a positive story or a negative story? So this is all the slides I have for you guys today, and I'm happy to share them with you. But I want to close with this statement before we go into back to the questions. I want you to stop thinking about what you're going to be when you graduate and start thinking about what problems do you want to solve and what do you need to learn in order to solve those problems. That's really the essence of the shift from a managerial employee mindset to an entrepreneurial mindset. So I'm done with my slides, and Stephen, I will send these slides to you immediately after, when we're finished with this seminar, so you can share them with the group.
Very appreciate.
So, John, I want to turn it back to you for the questions, if you can help with those.
Okay, so let's start. But that was a very brilliant presentation. Thank you so much. And we're all learning, not just for the students, but all of us on the panel have picked up very valuable points and great perspectives. Very grateful to you for sharing. Okay, so let's start from Blessing. Blessing says that I understand that mindset is important and we shouldn't blame others. But what do you do when your business is growing as a young person, but you actually want it to grow faster because you have bills to cover? So that's a question from Blessing. Let me go over it again so that you can get it well. He says that, what do you do when your business is growing as a young person, but you actually want it to grow faster because you have bills to pay? And he is taking it from the context that the mindset issue is important and that we shouldn't blame other people. So in such a scenario, what advice would you give to such a person?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. And what I would say are two things is, first of all, overnight success takes 25 years. So welcome to the Entrepreneur Club. I mean, that's really it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but there's an element of this thinking that I want to get at. Like, are you paying attention to your customers' needs, or are you just thinking about your own needs? Like, what else how can you better serve your customers? How can you delight your customers? How can you go above and beyond? Surround yourself with other entrepreneurs to ask that question. I don't know about your business. I don't know about the circumstances or any of that. So I'm not the person to really ask it. But I just said, number 7, surround yourself with other entrepreneurs to provide guidance and support. You can't do it alone.
Great, great, great. Thank you so much. Now, there's another question. The person wants to find out, why is it that good entrepreneurs are not good at planning? Why is it that good entrepreneurs are not good at planning? That's maybe the person's assertion, but wants you to see if you can attempt a response to that.
Well, the first answer is what I said about gutter cleaning. Like planning is inappropriate for a typical entrepreneur in the beginning, as I just said with my gutter cleaning example. Now, but there's another dimension to the question here, John, which is that entrepreneurs sometimes fail because they can't make the transition from discovery to growth. They want to keep experimenting. They want to keep experimenting when they've already got something that works and they have to grow it. So that's sometimes part of the problem. In my case, I'm a creative innovator, but I hire people who are better at management and the growth phase.
Okay.
That's great.
Yes, yes.
Quick
Great.
question.
Yes, Stephen, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just prompting Gary that if he could maybe share some insights on the Zamgoat case study, so that you can take that inspiration from the context of Africa and how the guy was able to scale up through the mindset change, what you did.
Yeah, thank you for that, Stephen. I ran across this guy probably, 12 years ago, Paul Nyambe in Zambia, and he took our entrepreneurial mindset course online, the Ice House Entrepreneurial Mindset course. And he was lost and he didn't know what to do. And he observed that in Zambia, like lots of people eat goat meat, but there's no official market for goat meat. So he tried an experiment and he bought a goat or two and he took it to a friend who had a butcher shop, and they slaughtered the goat and they cut it up and they processed it in a plastic shrink wrap like meat would be in the grocery store. And he took it to the grocer and said, try to sell this. And the guy called him back the next day and said, I'll take 200 more. So, and now he's like, you got to look him up. Zamgoat is the name of the company. Now he's impacted like more than 400 farmers across Zambia. He's just done amazing things with this. And you can ask him to zoom into this series. He'll do it for you. Paul Nyambe and Stephen, if you want me to.
Yeah, that'll be very interesting. Yes.
But here's the point that I want to get back to, Stephen and John. Get rid of the business plan. Forget the business plan. Instead, use a minimally viable product. A borrowed ladder, one goat. Just start small and try things. Don't quit your job. Don't drop out of school. Don't take big risks. Use some small percentage of your discretionary time and effort to think about other ways to make yourself useful to humans.
Great. Amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that insights for us. There's another question here also, which we'll need you to share some more light upon it. The person is asking, is the entrepreneurial mindset motivated by altruism, seeking opportunities to make a difference in people's life, or is it primarily driven by the potential for financial gain, with social impact being a welcome byproduct?
It's a really, really good question. And so I think of entrepreneurship as an altruistic paradox. meaning that by solving problems for other people, we can empower ourselves. Now, I've interviewed maybe 700 entrepreneurs all over the world, from South Africa to Argentina to Russia and Eastern Europe, all over the United States. Broadly speaking, the entrepreneurs who fail are the ones that are seeking to make money for themselves. And the ones that succeed are the ones that find a problem and they solve the problem. But the question allows me to get at a much more important point. Your ability to make yourself useful to other humans is a source of power, of unimaginable power. And it's available to anyone. It doesn't require money. It doesn't require new invention. It doesn't require that you have any academic credentials. It doesn't require any of that. It requires you to think for yourself. That's the real idea nested here. That's not to say you shouldn't go to college. That's not to say you shouldn't get a job. I'm not saying those things.
Yeah.
I'm saying just be careful how you assume that someone else is going to tell you what to learn and do in order to be successful. Here it goes, John. So many people get to be 30 years old or 20 years old or 40 years old, and they get to a level 3 assumption in their mind that I am who I am and the world is the way it is and there's nothing I can do about it. And when that happens, we stop looking for answers and we start looking for entertainment and coping strategies. And what I found by interviewing these entrepreneurs, John, is basically this. I don't care where you start. I don't care how poor you are. I don't care what situation you're in. I've done this work inside maximum security prisons with prisoners who are never going to be freed. It doesn't matter where you start. The people who are looking for answers will find them. And the people who aren't won't.
That's deep.
That's deep.
It's deep.
Yes. I had to
That's
take
what
a
it
moment
comes
to
down
absorb
to.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you looking
Yeah.
for answers? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The minute you stop looking for answers. But here's the thing, John.
Yeah.
Like I said, like you have gifts in you and interests and abilities, and you didn't even pick them. They came on the hard drive. You understand?
That's right.
No one ever tells you this in school. Your job, John, or anyone listening here, is to figure out what your interests, to follow the things that are interesting to you, develop your capabilities in ways that create value for others. And when you do that, you will flourish. You will experience lifelong growth. You will get to be who you are meant to be. If you don't do that, if you just go get a job and go home at the end of the day and do whatever, you're not going to get to be. You will suffer. Sometimes you'll suffer immediately, sometimes later. Sometimes in obvious ways, sometimes in not obvious ways. But more importantly, the people in your community will suffer because they don't get your gift. That's the real, the entrepreneurial mindset is really a formula for human flourishing. That's really what it has nothing to do with business at all.
Great, 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 great. And I think there's a follow-up question to that. So the question is based on your explanations and insights. Does it mean that one can have an entrepreneurial mindset, work for another organization, and throughout his or her lifetime, the person may never set up a business or start a business?
Correct. That's exactly what I'm saying. However, one must be aware of the ways in which our environment can either encourage or discourage entrepreneurial behavior. So I talked about a managerial mindset. Like, what are the level 3 values and assumptions inherent in managerial thinking? In a managerial mindset, we assume that the useful thing has already been determined by somebody else. Right? So we don't need useful thing discovery skills. Managerial mindset is focused on column 2. It's focused on the efficient replication and distribution of the useful thing. It's focused on efficiency. And so those values are in direct conflict with exploration and experimentation. Managerial paradigms tend to be intolerant of exploration and experimentation. And leaders must understand this and must create space where people can use some of their time and resources to explore.
Great, 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 very good. Maybe some 2 more questions, and then we'll give you the platform to actually round up the entire discussion for us. Now, I think during your presentation, there was a comment to the effect that you don't need a business plan, especially at the very initial phase of your business. And this participant would like you to throw more light on that. Because, typically coming from the academic background, the understanding is that you even need a business plan before you actually attempt anything. But it's the reverse based on what you told us. Can you please shed more light on that?
Yeah. I extensively wrote about this in my new book, and I wish I had a copy pulled up right here. Burn the business plan. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I say this to young people sometimes. If you're taking an entrepreneurship course and they're telling you to start with a business plan, you're in the wrong room. The business plan is an artifact of managerial thinking. The business plan assumes that you can draw from the past in order to predict the future, and you can't. So let's go back to my gutter cleaning example, John. Let's say I have the idea to clean gutters, and instead of borrowing a ladder and going out and knocking on doors, I went to a college or to a small business development center and said, hey, I want to start a gutter cleaning business. Can you help me? What are they going to say?
Yeah.
Write a business plan. Okay, first of all, how do I do that? It's going to be made up baloney. I have no idea people will pay for this. I have no idea what percentage of the population, what the market size is. I don't have any idea. But let's say that I cobble together some BS business plan. Okay? And now let's go pitch somebody, and somebody's going to give you $25,000 to start your gutter cleaning business. Okay. Let's imagine someone is foolish enough to give me that money. All right?
Yeah.
What am I going to do? I'm going to go buy a brand new truck. I'm going to go buy brand new ladders. I'm going to have a website and t-shirts that say Gary's gutter cleaning. I'm going to have signs that say Gary's gutter cleaning. The invoice says on it, Gary's gutter cleaning. And by the way, I don't like gutter cleaning. Okay, I was desperate. Okay. Now ask yourself this question, John. Will my customer ask me to fix their garage door or their porch steps? No.
No way.
They see Gary's gutter clean. I completely blocked myself off to the greater opportunity. The business planning is toxic. It's a discovery phase. You can't know before you go. In managerial thinking, you figure it all out and then you act on it. That's managerial mindset. That's called causal reasoning. But what no one ever tells you is there's a different logic. It's called effectual reasoning, whereby you have to go in order to know. You can't know before you go. You can't predict the future. You have to get into the arena and start trying things. So I get really worked up about that. It's horrible advice. Ditch the business plan and develop a minimally viable product. When you've sold $10,000, $50,000 worth of your product or service, then you might want to start thinking about planning on how to scale it. But I wrote this in the book, John. It's not that business planning isn't prudent. It's that it's premature.
Wow. Great. Stephen, please take over.
Yes, I think one of the students is asking a question on the page, says that if you can tell them more about when the book is coming up and if you have a pre-order also available.
I do. And let's see how I can do that. Let me see here. Give me 1 second, Stephen. I will.
Available, we can definitely share as well with them. When you get it to me, I can share with them all.
Okay, so if you just Google search the title of the book, The Entrepreneurial Mindset Advantage, I will put a link in the chat right now where you can order a digital copy. You can pre-order a digital copy from Penguin Random House or Amazon or wherever makes sense for you guys. Let's see if I can get this into the chat where folks, I put it in the chat. I think it's just going to hosts and panelists, but there's the link.
Okay, so my colleague Pope will put that into the participant as well. He'll do that.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen. At this juncture, yes, Gary, we've enjoyed every bit of this conversation. Really thought-provoking, extremely thought-provoking, and we would like to give you the next few minutes to give us your final or closing thoughts, and then Stephen will wrap it up for us, and then we can call it a day.
John and Stephen, to both of you and to all of you who are on this webinar, I am extremely humbled and grateful to share these ideas with you. This is the human connection. And I'll close by saying this: the entrepreneurial spirit is the human spirit. It's not just in some of us, it's in all of us. And if you are excited by these ideas, you should ask yourself why. It's because there's a self-actualizing tendency within you that's telling you to pursue these ideas, right? And so here's what I'll close with. We're living in the most opportunity-rich time in human history. But you can't see those opportunities with a managerial mindset. You can't find them with a business plan. But ultimately, what I'm saying is there's this vast reservoir of untapped human potential hiding in you, in your colleagues. It's hiding in people and places we've ignored or overlooked. And the only way we're going to discover it is start to think and act like entrepreneurs. That's really what this is about. Don't quit your day job. Don't drop out of school, but spend your time thinking about how can I use my gifts to make myself useful to other humans. So that's really it. Thank you again for inviting me into this program. It's a great honor. I will send my slides to you. I would be delighted if you would pre-order a copy of my book. The pre-order sales really help us get the book out into the world. So I would be very grateful for that as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Stephen, over to you.
Gary, once again, thank you for your time. I know you're a very, very busy person, but taking time out of your schedule to be with us for this hours is something that is very, very precious and well appreciated. For us, it's been a lot of great lessons. I always love to listen to you. And we look forward in this partnership together with you on this. Maybe after that, we're also going to tell the students as well more about your work and about Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative so that they can follow, subscribe to your e-newsletter, because we know that there's a lot of good knowledge you've been sharing all the time, because it's not everything that you're going to get from the classroom. So these are things that the students actually on this webinar, you take very, very serious about it and put them into practice. The world is about networks, relationships. So all we're doing right now is still part of the entrepreneur mindset. Like Gary shared with you, the Zam Gold story. Who knows that tomorrow you can identify something in Ghana that is of a need that you can quickly package in, add value to it, or provide a service that will turn you to the next big thing, for it. This is a series of webinars we're doing, and we're very happy to start with this mindset. The purpose was to get you to understand the relevance of this, and the subsequent webinars you're going to have will also going to help you. So before we go, we just want to thank everybody again. Make sure you spread the news. The webinars we are doing is for an entire student. It doesn't matter whether you fully subscribe for the Skill Up for Jobs program, but for the entire university students. So spread the word to your colleagues, your mates. These are things that it's priceless. You'll not get it from the classroom. So just endure to come. And when we send evaluation to you on this webinars, you feel it. I'm going to send one to you on the mindset we just did. You fill it out, and we'll have a surprise prize for randomly. The people who are going to fill the evaluation will surprise you with something. Maybe probably Jen will take it upon itself to get some of Gary's book and make you have those books, so that as a gesture for you and giving us your candid feedback about this and stuff. And we'll see how best we can work with Entrepreneurial Learning Initiative to see maybe putting practical training again into this, so you can do the master courses on entrepreneur mindset in the future together with us. So we want to say thank you all for your time, and it's an honor to really, really have you, and looking forward in doing everything with you all together. Once again, Gary, thank you, and thank you, audience. Thank you, the technical team, Pope, Popolampo, all the resources you give to us on Zoom, making the behind-the-scenes things. We appreciate your time. John, Julius, who's also on from Jane, and everybody that is on there, we thank you all for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, and let's keep the conversation going. Thank you very much. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
Good. Yes, before you go, we are going to edit, get you the recordings as well. We'll put it back onto the platform, the WhatsApp platform that we have, and also be sharing it on the Jane Ghana YouTube channel. All right, for you guys, those who want to watch it in the future, to look at them, listen to them, and all that bit. So this is what we're going to do moving forward, and especially, as I said again, with the evaluation. forms we're going to send. We want to encourage everybody to try as much as possible to fill that and give us a candid feedback on the session. Thank you all once again.